Welcome to the Time Management Podcast with me, your host, Abigail Barnes. I'm a productivity coach, global speaker, time management author, and award-winning entrepreneur on a mission to share the 888 formula with the world and to remind you that it's your time. Leave it to me to bring you new time management tips, tricks, tools, and strategies, to introduce you to guests, research, and case studies from around the world, and to give you a simple 5-step process you can follow to uplevel your productivity, achieve your goals, and create a life that exceeds your wildest dreams. I'm so excited that you're here, so let's get started. Welcome to the show. It's you and me this week for part 2 of our 3-part series on becoming main character energy. And this week's episode, we are talking all about how to trust your emotions. Because what if your emotions aren't weakness? What if they are your lifelong tour guide and all you need to do is learn how to trust your emotions and how to stop denying them? In this episode of the Time Management Podcast, part 2 of a 3-part powerful series, we deep dive into emotions. We are talking about the science, the history, the research, and all of the things that might be keeping you stuck on purpose, sabotaging your success, and stopping you from becoming main character energy. And more importantly, stepping into that next chapter of your life. This episode is for you if enough is enough. It's also for you if you know you are meant for more. And it's definitely for you if you're ready to do whatever it takes. I don't know how much you know about emotions, whether you use them, whether you trust them, whether you like them, whether they're reliable, they're unreliable. So let's just start with a little bit of a history lesson. Because if you are anything like me, there's more to this emotion conversation than happy, sad, scared, or excited. 2 of those could be classed as feelings, and that's a whole nother conversation for another day. What is a feeling? What is an emotion? That is a rabbit hole. Let's start with this history of emotions. We are going to take a whirlwind tour. We're going to go from philosophy to 21st century. So hold your hats. Let's go. We start off with the ancient philosophers, thinkers like Aristotle, who explored emotions, identifying core feelings and their impact on human behavior. Then we fast forward into the 17th century. We've got René Descartes, who introduced concepts like dualism. He was distinguishing between the mind and the body and influencing later emotional theories. Then we go into the 19th century, where there was this emergence of scientific studies with people like Charles Darwin, who published The Expression of the Emotions in Man and Animals, proposing that emotions are universal and evolved traits. Now we're speeding through William James and Carl Lang, who independently developed the Carl Lang theory, suggesting that emotions result from physiological responses to stimuli. Fast forward to the early 20th century, we have Walter Cannon and Philip Bard, who proposed the Cannon-Bard theory, arguing that emotions and psychological responses occur simultaneously, not sequentially. Next, we're moving into 1962 with Stanley Satcher and Jerome Singer, who introduced the 2-factor theory, emphasizing that emotion is based on physiological arousal and cognitive interpretation. Then next, in the 1970s, we've got Professor Paul Ekman, who has a PhD in clinical psychology. He identified 6 basic emotions: happiness, sadness, fear, anger, surprise, and disgust. And his universal facial expression research, which was carried out with the isolated 4 people of Papua New Guinea, became the foundation for instruments such as the lie detection machine and understanding micro expressions. So, you know how they say that you can read people's faces from the micro expressions? His work was the foundation for building upon to create more around that. He is ranked the 59th among the most cited psychologists of the 20th century. Then in the late 20th century, expanding on that understanding, we've got the work of Professor Robert Plunkett, who has a PhD in psychology, and he developed the wheel of emotion, illustrating 8 primary emotions and their combinations. And those emotions were trust, joy, fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, anger, and anticipation. And his wheel looks like a distinctive flower. It's got 24 distinct dyactic emotions and 32 distinct emotions. His work looked at the relationship between the different emotions, the polar emotions. So we've got the flip side of joy and sadness, trust and disgust, fear and anger, surprise and anticipation. Then, rolling into 1982, therapist Gloria Wilcox created the feeling wheel to help individuals articulate and understand their emotions. At the center of the wheel, she identified 6 primary emotions, expanding into 6 secondary emotions, and then expanding into 6 tertiary emotions, totaling 108 distinct emotions. The feeling wheel is organized into 3 concentric circles. It's got the inner, the middle, and the outer. Then in the 1990s, we've got Joseph Ledoux, who researched the brain and the mechanisms of emotion, in particular the role of the amygdala, which is at the front of your brain, and its fear responses. And then more recently, in the 21st century, we started to move into the neuroscience and the cultural perspectives stage of the research. In the 2000s, we've got Antonio Damasio, who was exploring the connection between emotions and decision-making and the brain, emphasizing the somatic marker hypothesis. And then in the 2010s, we had Alan Cohen, who identified 27 distinct emotional states, highlighting the complexity of human emotions beyond basic categories. And finally, we've got Professor Batia Mesquita, who is a distinguished social psychologist who advocates for cultural construction of emotions and looks at the culture and the variations in emotions and collectivism, emotions and individualism, emotions and social belonging, emotions and acculturation. Wow. That was a whirlwind. Now back to you and how you can use this information to learn more about your emotions, how to use them, and to live the life of your dreams. I find it fascinating to look back and see the journey that we have gone on to get to here since the philosophers and the 17th century right up until now. We have got wheels of emotion, we have got wheels of feeling, we have got all sorts of neuroscientific discoveries, we've got somatic discoveries. And what is so fascinating about all of this is that we are starting to really get the point that emotions are not weakness, they are science, and they can be scientifically proven. And there's a whole host of tools out there for you that you can use. I first came across Gloria Wilcox's feeling wheel after a session with a counsellor who kept pressing me to use other words in my conversation with them other than happy, sad, excited, or afraid. They could not understand why I was unable to use any other words. In the end, it got a little heated, and my pushback was because, quite simply, that's all I know. Afterwards, with tears streaming down my face, I asked Google to give me some more emotions, some more feelings. And that's when I discovered that there were 108, according to Gloria Wilcox, and that blew my mind. And it blew the mind of my friends and family as well, who I discussed it with and said, have you heard of this feeling? Have you heard of that feeling? Have you heard of this feeling? And if you are interested and you go and do the research, maybe if you've done work with counselors, because this is something that's used a lot in therapy, then you might be mind blown too. And you also might be very familiar with this. You might be somebody who's very in touch with their emotions and knows them. But I definitely was somebody who wasn't. And so find the science and find the conversation absolutely fascinated. In fact, researching for this episode was very, very fun and involved me and ChatGPT having a long philosophical conversation. I'll get onto that in just a minute. But emotions versus feelings, I still get confused, but it seems like there's widely accepted universal emotions, and then there's personal feelings as a result of these emotions. Or perhaps it's just the way we speak. There really is so many ways that you can interpret all of this. But using the emotional wheel or the feeling wheel, it's a great starting point to better understand your emotions, your feelings, and most importantly, the triggers. And that is one of the keys of today's episode. Last week, we were talking all about your thoughts, but your thoughts start with a trigger. Something triggers it. And it's usually a feeling which comes from an emotion, and that feeling and emotion are tied together for a specific reason. As always, it goes without saying, if you feel like professional help would be beneficial for you, please seek it. I have sought it many times in my life and found it so helpful to get clarity on what's going on in my brain, to speak to people. And there's a variety of different people, but professionals are trained to be able to guide you and support you through the process. So please, please, please do that for yourself if you feel it would be relevant, because I have found it so incredibly beneficial. Last week, we were talking about episode 33, which is all about thought tracking. And in that episode, I said there was a 24-hour thought tracking exercise. If you've not done that, I highly recommend that you check that out. That can also be applied to your emotions as well. So you can track your emotion, you can track the trigger, you can track the time of day, and you can start to build a pattern, because self-awareness is what will set you free. It was what will help you to release patterns and habits from your subconscious, which are driving your conscious. And it's only when you become aware of them that things can change. The minute you become aware of them, that's the minute things will start changing. Here's a quick 3-step exercise that you can do off the back of this week's episode. Step number 1 is to name the emotion that you're feeling. Step number 2 is to reflect on why you're feeling this way. This is really about digging a little bit deeper, discovering potential causes of those feelings. Things are not usually about what they're about. There might just have been a trigger. What is the pattern? Where does it go? Can you spot it? Can you find it? And then step number 3 is taking action. Now that you've spotted the trigger, you can start to make changes. You can phone a friend. You can get up from the place that you're in. You can take a walk. You can do some squats, change your state. You can shake. This is a big thing that they've noticed recently, and it's crazy that we're all talking about it and seeing how this could work. But what they've discovered by observing dogs and other animals in the wild is that they shake to release an anxiety state that they just experienced. So if we shake just with wild abandonment, we can also release trapped feelings and emotions from our body. Somatic healing, as I was saying earlier in the research, is a big part of this journey. The trauma, the feelings get trapped in our body, and it's only when we do certain things that we can release them, which is why I absolutely love yin yoga. This is a great way to release the trapped emotions from your body. If you've not checked that out, I definitely recommend you have a look at this. To summarize, we've covered a lot, but I feel like these are the key points for the conversation this week. We've talked about Pluckett's wheel of emotions. We've talked about Wilcox's wheel of feelings. Last week, I mentioned one of my favorite pieces of work is a book by Dr. David Hawkins, who mapped consciousness. I mentioned his book, Power versus Force. He was an academic and he researched and mapped consciousness, giving every single emotion a numerical value. His work was stating that emotions corresponded to a vibration and it could be measured by kinesiology. This brings me on to my conversation with ChatGPT about pseudoscience. And ChatGPT and I agreed that a lack of clear scientific evidence doesn't discount what can't traditionally be explained. What I mean by that is that mapping consciousness and saying that every single emotion has a numerical Hertz value isn't clearly backed up by a ton of science. However, if somebody had explained Wi-Fi back in the day, we'd have thought they were crazy. Just because the science isn't there yet, in my opinion, doesn't mean that things aren't possible. They say that the brain believes what you tell it. There is a science to prove this. They call this the reticular activating system. It is searching for the proof of what you are telling it is possible. So do with that what you will. If you're interested in it more, then look further into it. And if it's not for you, then this was a great chapter of the conversation. Moving on. Finally, with the research around the science, we've got in the 2000s, they had neuroscientific advancements, and that's when modern imaging techniques like the MFRI scanners came into being and the PET scanners. These helped them to study consciousness being processed, and it's leading to theories like integrated information theory and global workspace theory, which is proving the point of the conversation I had with ChatGPT about perhaps the technology isn't there yet. And when it comes to scientific research, we only have research for the scientific experiments that are funded. If there's money, it's funded. If there's no money, it's not funded. Who wants to fund these next level consciousness experiments? And then next time we can be talking from research. Wrapping up this episode, let's talk about how you can trust your emotions, starting with understanding them at that macro level and then identifying yours. This episode has been hopefully proving to you that emotions are scientific, they are real, they are here to help us, they are here to keep us safe. They're not something that we just made up. And once we build on that, we can start to identify our own emotions and how they are helping us and how they are not helping us. And perhaps this conversation today will help you to better understand the success, failure, procrastination, habit loops that were taken from episode 2 and why it's easy for us to get stuck and it's harder for us to break out of these cycles, as well as those emotional payoffs for staying small and how we can break the cycles. We are people pleasing, catastrophizing, allowing imposter syndrome. We've got a fear of success. We've got a fear of failure. These are all learned behaviors, things that we have picked up through lived trauma, big T, little t. They come from society. They come from cultural norms. They come from our families. They come from our friends. We were told not to stand out. We were told not to speak up. We were told not to rock the boat. Is it any wonder that when it comes to emotions, nobody wants to have an angry friend, nobody wants to have a sad friend, all of these things that people said to us? Is it any wonder that when it comes to emotions, we doubt them, we question them, and we push them away? However, episode 44, we were talking about, is people pleasing a trauma response? That might be a good one for you to check out. But knowledge, my friend, as I always say, isn't power. Action is. And action requires momentum. And here are 5 reasons why momentum is so incredibly powerful. Number 1, momentum is real. It's physics. It's not just motivation. Just like a massive container ship that is moving all the things around the world, your brain resists change due to inertia. Once it's in motion, things get easier. But starting from a standstill, it's really difficult. So, for example, a 400-meter container ship traveling at full speed can take 3.3 nautical miles, or 3.8 miles, or 6.1 kilometers to stop. And that takes around 29 minutes. So to get that container ship moving takes time. To stop that container ship takes time, which, number 2, is why starting is hard, because your brain is lazy by design. Your brain is wired for efficiency, not effort. It automates behaviors to conserve energy. When you try something new, you're fighting this automation. Until the behavior becomes a habit, it requires conscious effort and conscious decision making, which is something that your brain does not enjoy, because this burns more fuel. More fuel needs more food. And what if you don't have access to that food? Your brain starts thinking and panicking. So it says, resist, resist, no, no, no. So in order to get into momentum, you have to overcome that part of your brain. Number 3, restarting is even harder because you have lost the cues. When you start, you are relying on habits, on cues, on things that trigger your behavior. When this routine is disrupted, those cues vanish, those habits fall apart, and then restarting means you have to find new cues, find new triggers, and start over again. If you go on holiday, you come back, it can be really hard to get back into work because you started and you stopped. That's not to say you don't need to have a holiday, and it's not good to switch off. It's to understand that it will be challenging at the beginning. But if you've got those cues, if you've got those triggers, it will be easy to get started again. When it comes to an analogy around exercising, that's where we are relying on muscle memory. Number 4, we are looking at small, consistent actions to beat big, sporadic efforts. Trying to make massive changes all at once is like trying to stop that container ship. It's not going to happen easily, and instead focusing on small and consistent actions, step by step, day by day. These incremental steps build momentum, and they compound over time, and they make progress easier. And then number 5, using external environmental changes to your advantage. We've talked about this before. Perhaps you can change where you work from. Perhaps you can change the people that you're working around. I love to work in a library. I love to work in a busy coffee shop. For certain tasks, I find it so empowering and inspiring because there is just people and energy going on around me. If I need to focus, I need to be somewhere absolutely quiet, and preferably somewhere dark. Darkness really seems to help me. I used to love going to a cubicle in the library when I was studying for my marketing degree. Used to be able to book out these rooms. There was nothing else in them. You just take your books. We didn't have laptops back in the day. We would take our books, we would take our notebooks, and we'd be there by ourselves and get that work done. Everything we've discussed today, again, is the what. It's what's stopping you, it's what's blocking you, it's what's keeping you limited. Once you start to recognize your emotions, make friends with them, start to trust them, start to use them, your intuition muscle will build. And this is why we are doing the how in next week's episode. This is also why that how is being married with the 25-day Magic May challenge, where you focus on 2 goals that you want to achieve. And it might be, as per a recent conversation with somebody, you have one goal, one big goal with two sub-goals. Or it might be that you have two goals with sub-goals. However you want to focus, whatever you want to achieve, the 25-day challenge will help you to get momentum, to build the cues, to have the triggers, and to be around other people all doing it together. And together you will become main character energy, because you never lose, you only learn. You'll take action daily, you'll track your progress, and you'll adjust from a place of results rather than, I think I could do this, I think I could do that. What doesn't kill you fuels you. No one else will get your dreams, because those dreams are yours. That vision is yours. This week, we've talked about the emotions that might be keeping you stuck and how you can actually use them for your greatness. Next week, we will be talking about embodiment and how you can really start walking out this vast amount of knowledge. Next week, we will be pulling everything together. Details about the Magic May 25-day challenge are in the show notes. As I said, you focus on two goals for 25 days and create lasting change. Use the link in the show notes. You'll be able to grab that 50% discount I mentioned in last week's episode. It has been extended for the Easter weekend, so make sure that you grab it. Keep going, my friend. You have got this. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and remember, it's your time. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you loved what you heard, be sure to let me know by leaving a review so I can keep the good stuff coming. Come and say hi on Instagram at Success by Design Training, or visit my website successbydesigntraining.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search Abigail Barnes. Until next time, don't forget, you are amazing and it's your time.